as you know, particularly on the visual side, trends do change. So if you want to stay up to date, a logo that was valid 10 years ago may not be valid anymore today. It may need a refresh. It may need a complete overhaul. It really depends on how much your business has changed over time. So I definitely think that, refreshing your branding and really looking at that during your busy times, even though you are busy doing the work, this is the time to really start to look at investing in a rebrand.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Frontliners Podcast. I'm your host, Anuj Raman, and on this show, we bring in remarkable entrepreneurs who share real-world advice, strategies, and lessons that they've learned and own to operate their own business from the front lines every day. So let's get started.
Hello, Rosie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Anuj. So honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm totally excited to have you on. Let's start this. For the people who might not have heard about you yet, paint a little picture. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do?
Well, my name is Rosie Grasso, and I'm a mum, firstly, to two beautiful children. And I'm also a co-founder of Idea Pro, together with my husband, Anthony. We run a strategic marketing and graphic design studio based in Melbourne, Australia.
Wow, that's awesome. So let's dive deep. Let's talk about how did you guys come up with the idea of starting Idea Pro?
Oh, well, it's interesting how it all came about. But I guess I actually did not start the business myself. Anthony started the business around 13 years ago now, actually, prior to me joining him. And he ran the business more as a freelance design and printing business for around 6 years. So he's actually our creative director and graphic designer, so head graphic designer with his team. So before then it was really around design and printing when printing was much more popular as a marketing medium. Around probably, I've got to say about 10 years ago now, I worked, after working in fashion for a long time, for around 10 years, in the early part of my career, I moved into a marketing communications role for one of the biggest paint companies in the world. And I landed the marketing manager role for them for Australia and New Zealand a couple of years later. And that's really where I started to cut my teeth in corporate marketing and managing large scale budgets and teams and really learning the ins and outs of the marketing world. And then when I joined Anthony, which is now around 6 years ago now, so I joined him just after we got married, actually. I joined him a few months later, and we decided to team up and really think about our clients. And we looked at his skills and then mine, which is more, as a marketing strategist, I guess, and fuse those and morph them together to become a marketing and design studio, which would play to our strengths and we brought that to our clients.
Wow, that's awesome. Really love that. Love that whole backdrop story and how you guys came together. And specifically today, I want to talk about, since you're the marketing strategist for Idea Pro, I'm sure you'll have a lot of marketing ideas for how you went about thinking about design, thinking about how to market those businesses. So I want to start off with a really broad question, and we'll get into the specifics later on. But let's start with this. Like, what are some of the low cost, easy to implement marketing tactics for business owners that you think would really benefit them? And specifically for the business owners, the people who are not really thinking about investing into marketing, like big budgets at this time. So what would be some of those low cost, easy to implement marketing tactics?
Sure. So there's a lot you can do, actually, particularly, if you're a business that's starting up or in your first few years, or if you're going through a period where you need to, tighten the budget a little. Definitely, if you're going to do some work in-house, you could look at social media. And I think social media is a relatively low-cost entry marketing medium. Obviously, it takes time, so there is a time cost, but not so much a financial cost unless you're, paying an external party to do that for you. But really, social is a big one. I would suggest to pick your platform. You don't need to be on every single medium. I think picking whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's Facebook or Instagram, I think you need to be really good and get great at one, and be active and engage with the accounts that you follow, particularly on Instagram, and you will start to see some interaction and engagement happening there. That's certainly one. Business directories online. It's really easy for you to list your business on online directories so that you get exposure and through, assist your Google ranking that way as well. I would also, if you're an established business, you could contact 5 past clients and check in to see how they're going, and see if they require your services again. It's relatively low cost to do that. You can just send an email or make a phone call, and it could just kickstart your marketing, or could kickstart your sales through a bit of marketing activity. Definitely networking is another one. Not everyone is a fan, but I would say that it's a really good way of getting out there, and particularly in the local community. See what list of events, if it's relevant to you, of course, write a list of the events that are coming up in, say, the next 3 to 6 months that you'd like to attend, and go along. Don't be scared. Everyone's pretty much in the same boat, wanting to connect and do the same thing. So I think that's a really effective way of marketing also when you're on a budget. Podcasts are also good too. So such as this one, you can actually let your contacts know. You could do a LinkedIn post, for example, and say, hey, I'm actually taking invitations. I'd love to be featured on a podcast in my area of expertise, and see what comes of that as well. And just some ideas.
Well, those are some great ideas. The main takeaway from this, from me, is personally as a small business, is like just focus on one thing and just go deep with it. So, for example, as you said, if you're on social media, just it's low cost entry, and pick your platform, pick one platform, and engage with the audience there, so that's maximum leverage for you, and you're not spending your time on all these 5 tactics, and just focus on one thing. Am I reading this correctly? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sure thing. Absolutely. I think that you can get really bogged in marketing, and marketing can get really overwhelming.
For sure.
Because you can come up with so many ideas. And obviously I've rattled off a lot of ideas just then, but I think the key is less is more, and doing things well. So if you're going to choose social media, and I think it really is, it's a no-brainer. You need to be on it if you're in business. But I would say if you've never been on it before and you're really cutting your teeth, then you pick one. And you really start to learn the ins and the outs of that platform. Google is an amazing resource to learn, and YouTube, and or you can tap into, if you have got marketing support in your network, then ask them for support as well in terms of how to best leverage the platform that you're going to be focused on.
That's great. Those are some of the great ways, especially for if someone does not want to invest in marketing. This will be a great starting point. And this becomes a great segue. So let's say someone took this advice and applied this to their business, and now they have some clients coming in, and their business has at maximum capacity. Like, for example, they're a small team, they're like 3 to 4 employees, and they can't serve any more clients. So they've got all the clients using the tactics we mentioned or something else. So at this point, what kind of marketing should a business owner think about? Like, they've got the clients, they've got the cash flow coming in, and they've hit the maximum capacity. So what kind of marketing should a business owner think about, like, when the sales pressure is off? How can they move the business forward?
Good question. Yeah, great question. So I think this is really interesting, because usually marketing is always thought of when you're wanting to grow or develop or push the dial forward. But the reality is that some businesses are doing quite well when it comes to sales, or, like you said, they're already at capacity. So there's not much space to take on new clients. So look, some things that come to mind. One of the big things that comes to mind is rebranding. So this is more a strategic activity, and I think that's what it is. I think once you're sort of at that capacity, strategy becomes more important, because you want to make sure that wherever your business is heading, that capacity that you have filled is the right type of capacity. So what I mean by that is, if you're going to look at your branding, for example, and it's not just your logo. So a logo is one component of branding, but we're looking at, is your messaging still relevant? Does the visual identity that you have in your logo, is it still resonating? Have your products changed along the way? And does your identity and your messaging and everything you're putting out to the market, is that still relevant, and is it still current? And also, as you know, particularly on the visual side, trends do change. So if you want to stay up to date, a logo that was valid 10 years ago may not be valid anymore today. It may need a refresh. It may need a complete overhaul. It really depends on how much your business has changed over time. So I definitely think that, refresh your branding and really looking at that during your busy times. Even though you are busy doing the work, this is the time to really start to look at investing in a rebrand potentially. A rebrand exercise may take 6 months from start to finish. So that's something you could do. That's one. So the other things that come to mind are also alongside the rebrand is actually looking at your product offering. If you are at capacity, which is a fantastic problem to have, possibly, providing you're profitable. Sure. It's not a capacity issue that's just, oh my gosh, we're so busy doing stuff, but we're not actually profitable or, where we need to be financially. You need to probably look at your what you're delivering, whether it's your product or your service, and perhaps think about refining what that looks like. We often will work with clients to brand their product or brand their service. So when you're thinking branding, it's not so much just thinking about it as your business name, but it's also you can actually launch a product to market that has a sub-brand, and that's really important too. It actually elevates the profile of that offering to the target market and gives it more weight than just saying, hey, we now offer copywriting. You could actually say, we now offer pro copy or something like that. I'm literally talking off the cuff here.
Those are some great...
you could do.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying there's some things that you can do in those times when you are busy, but it really is around strategic thinking. I think that's the time when you start thinking strategically about your business, even more so.
So a couple of interesting points that you mentioned here. So the first thing is that rebranding is not just about the logo, and it's more about having the perfect logo for the perfect audience and your messaging, your brand positioning for the type of audience that you want to attract. And second thing you mentioned, it's a long process. It takes 6 months. It's not easy, obviously, because it takes a lot of time. It's a very strategic move, and which is a perfect segue, because since you're the marketing strategist, Idea Pro, this is the perfect thing to learn from you and for you to explain to the potential audience who might be thinking about branding, how do you think about a design strategy? Let's say a client comes to you, and what's your mindset like? How do you think about a design strategy that will help their business, that will build that brand for them? Especially from your point of view, how do you think about that branding strategy so that it can help the client's business grow? Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the podcast. It's such a cliffhanger, but I wanted to let you know that when Rosie answered this question, there was a lot of background noise coming from my side. I made a rookie mistake of not muting my microphone while she was answering, and because the high sensitivity of my microphone, it caught all the noise that it could pick up within range. I did not want to edit and cut this part out because of all the noise, and also because this answer laid the foundation for what the rest of the podcast is about. So just wanted to give you a little heads up and wanted to add a little bit more context here before you go on listening. Now, back to the podcast.
Sure. So this is, I guess, a bit of a deep topic. So design strategy is, I guess, overarching and incorporates branding as one of the components. So I might talk about them separately. So design strategy looks at how design is infused throughout your customer touchpoint experience. So if you think about, what does a customer see or find if they search for you online, for example, or what's the experience like when they step into your shop if you have a storefront? Or if you send an email, for example, what does that email say? What does it look like? How is it presented? So when we look at and we undertake this activity for an existing business, we literally map it out every single time. We think about every single time a prospect or client comes into contact with your brand, what's that designed experience like? Is it consistently on brand? Is it what your customer wants to see, feel, experience? It's actually about them. So we think about design from a customer's perspective. So that's for existing businesses. But if we talk about new businesses, it always begins with the brand strategy first. And we touched on that a little bit earlier. What does your brand stand for? The positioning. What is your story? How do you want to be known? What language will you use? And then, of course, branding as a visual identity or the logo. That's when it comes in. What will it look like? And it's only at that stage that we start looking at developing a logo at that point. So the impact, the impact of doing that on a business is that your customers have a more on-point experience. They keep wanting more and more and more because they enjoy the process of interacting with your brand and how it looks and feels, and hopefully they become raving fans along the way.
For sure. One thing I really liked about you mentioned about buyer's journey, which is so important when it comes, especially to inbound marketing. Like you've got to have that whole thing mapped out, like from the awareness to the referral stage, like the whole column mapped out. And this is still such an important thing to do for any business, even though you're starting out. It's a good starting point to know what your funnel looks like. For example, like going from the awareness stage to the consideration stage. I mean, there are different ways like people do this buyer's journey. Like, would you like to just give us a few tips about how to go about mapping a buyer's journey?
Yeah. So, look, we literally, we whiteboard it. It's pretty, it's a brainstorm session. It's literally just mapping it all out and mind mapping. And often you will literally just come up with all of the different ideas with a client. And generally we'll work together on that. And then we'll also take it away to see if we can add more points or touch points to the process, or if we should take some away. So, usually it's just a bit of a mud map, and then we timeline it. And so we literally will start from the very, very beginning in terms of awareness and all the different awareness touch points, and then go through the process all the way through to the end of the buying process and beyond.
That's awesome. I want to slowly transition this since we're on the topic of design. So I'll be fully candid here. I was reading a post of yours which talked about design thinking, which was a relatively new term for me. It's not usual. Like when I heard about design, I always thought about graphic design. Okay, visual design. Okay, that's all about. But since I saw the post about design thinking, it really got me curious to really learn more about like what is design thinking from your point of view. Because I'm all about like strategy is great, but I'm all about how does one go about creating that strategy? How does one, like those mental models that one uses to transform a business? And it really got me curious, and I would love to know what's design thinking from your point of view.
Sure. So look, design thinking is really, it's really, to try to simplify it, is really about achieving your business and client goals by using a creative and innovative problem-solving approach. Going through a process, there's formally there's a 5-stage design thinking process, which you can get stuck in the process of it, but it actually usually is quite a quick process. It can be a quick process, and it's not necessarily linear. So what we do is go through the stages of design thinking, and I might run through those, might help. And then through that, the idea is that you get a better outcome at the end. The idea is usually going through this design thinking process, you should it's the difference between failure or success of launching a project or a goal, by making sure we cover off some of these thoughts. So the first thing that we do is practice empathy. So what that means is we actually develop an empathetic approach to your users, really think about them, not what you want or what you think that you want, but what do they really want and what do they really need and what do they want us to deliver. So we start with that. That then goes into what the actual problem is that we define the problem. So what is it that your users needs in terms of what's their actual problem, and what are your insights around that problem? How do you think, what's your understanding of it? How do you think that you can solve it? We then go through step 3, which is ideation. And that's about challenging and questioning the problem. Are there any assumptions we need to make? And we start to sort of think about ideas. What are the possible solutions that we could have for this problem? And I guess to put it into a practical sense, we might be delivering on an event, And, we want to come up with, whether it's the right brand for that event, the right name for that event, because we do a bit of that work as well for clients. And, what are all the possible, implications of certain words if you use them in a name, and all the ideas then start to flow. Again, always thinking about what the customer and how they will accept that idea. And then we do prototyping. We really start to test the creation of the idea. And actually quite recently we prototyped a sample event theme name, and we actually presented that to the client at the very, very early stages. It was really around sketching, basic ideas, but to give the client the initial feeling of where it could go. And it's about then testing. So stage 5 is testing. So what you want to do is then test what you've created once it's been approved to go to market. You modify it if it's needed before you then deliver it on scale.
Well, that's amazing. And it's not easy, as you said. It's not an easy thing to say. But I like to repeat a few things that I got from this. So basically, you start with it's a strategic thing to do, and it's more of a thinking model. And you start off with it delivers a better outcome if you have a strategy in place. So you start off with empathy. I'm just touching the major points here. Your first thing is empathy. You think about the user experience. Then you mention the actual problem. Then it's the ideation stage, then prototyping and testing. It all sounds good in theory, but in actuality, it's more complex than that. So we're going to leave it at that. If anybody needs help with that, please contact Rosie. This is not my topic. So sure. Moving on, let's go to something controversial. Let's talk about, when I say controversial, not really controversial. That really depends from what angle you look at it. But let's talk about traditional media like printed media and versus the modern media like infographics and ebooks. What's your view on that? Like, for whom does traditional media works best, like printed literature, magazines, newspaper? And for which type of business do you think like more of the infographic ebooks, like electronic graphic design works? Would love to know your point of view.
Yeah, well, I guess that I probably wouldn't group traditional marketing versus, say, when you call it modern media or digital marketing in sort of broad groups and then analyze them that way. I sort of feel that you need to look at individual communication methods, that, some of the ones you mentioned and more, and probably look at them based on a particular business, and then look at that business and look at your customer, and then whether you're a B2B business or a B2C or business to business or business to consumer business, whether you sell a product or a service can influence what you choose. And also how long the decision-making lead time is. So different marketing methods, will lend themselves depending on your specific situation. So there's certainly some tried and true methods, but there are also some methods which don't work as well. I think more recently, I have to say, in our experience, things like, you touched on magazine advertising or newspaper, definitely in the B2B space, for example, that working as well. So there are other mediums that are being used, such as LinkedIn instead. If you worked in B2B, I might use some examples to sort of bring some practicality to what I mentioned. So if you work in the B2B space in a service-based industry, for example, it's really about fostering relationships and word of mouth and establishing yourself as an expert. So definitely like networking would come into play there. I'm touched on LinkedIn already, perhaps Instagram as well. And then, you might look at promoting Google reviews online. So I definitely don't think that it's, you would look at a business and say, well, you're only going to do, traditional, or you're only going to do digital. I think these days there's definitely a combination of the two. And if you were selling products, for example, traditional media or brochures, for example, might be more appropriate where a product's technical or has lots of specifications that need to be communicated. Or if you have a really large product range in general, it doesn't need to be a technical product, but if you have lots of products and you need to communicate that in some way, then, a product brochure might be more appropriate. If you were in retail, you would definitely start looking at Facebook and Instagram advertising, with click-throughs, to your website in terms of your website store. In-store marketing, if you're in retail, of course, as well. And then you might look at some event activations around some launches and influencer marketing as well. Probably one of the digital mediums I think that might apply across nearly all types of businesses is, Google AdWords and SEO management. I think there has to be a level of, SEO work done, whether it's paid or unpaid, on page or off page. And I guess it really depends if you go down the road of paid ads, depending on the competitiveness of your specific niche, you would make a decision on whether that's best for your business or not. So there are a lot of different things you can do when we work with clients. It's not a one size fits all, and I guess that's why some of our clients work with us, because that you can do so much, and it's not a case of giving a list and saying, well, these are all appropriate for you. I think we actually do a lot of research to see what actually works, depending on it at a point in time as well.
Yeah, that's great. And the thing that I got away from this is it's not about like which one is better. It's more about like what kind of marketing would suit your business. So moving from that one, I want to get, can you give us an example of like a client of yours that you work with? You can mention the name or not mention the name. That's really up to you. Mm-hmm. Like you can mention, can you tell us a little bit about the project, like for printed media, like you do at Idea Pro, like sales brochures, anything like that? One kind of like, for example, let's say a case study, like which worked best for the business, so that we can get an idea for what type of business that kind of thing worked best. Can you give us an example there?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So one of the projects we delivered last year, which actually the company that I previously worked for, I mentioned earlier, the large paint company, are now clients of mine, which is amazing. So they work with us to develop a capability brochure for their region. And that particular brochure encompassed, I guess, some broad information around their business, their service offering, the different locations that they serviced, and some case study information as well. And that was a really great tool for their sales team to target new prospective clients, to give, I guess, an initial insight about their business. And, that could be sent by email, of course, also, and downloaded digitally, and shared by social media and all of that in terms of delivery. But it was really effective, and it's been really well received. And, I just had a meeting this morning with them, and, again, the comment was made that it's still doing really well for them. And there is, potentially intention now to roll out a similar capability brochure across their other regions as well throughout Asia.
That's great. That's a great example. So again, the takeaway is that you should first understand like what kind of what are your goals are. First of all, what are your goals for your business? What are you trying to achieve here? Is it branding? Is it more sales? And then you diagnose it a little bit more, and you try to understand who is the end consumer and what's the best medium to reach them through. As you mentioned, the example of your client and how you do that through brochure, which is great. And now moving on, since we're talking about design, there's one thing that always comes up, whether it's in writing, whether it's in creating content or video content, there's always this one thing which plagues every content creator or every designer, which is creative blocks. Let's talk about creative blocks. How do you find the inspiration? Especially as a marketing strategist, you're on the front line, you're someone who's leading the team. How do you overcome those creative blocks? How do you find inspiration for new design projects?
Look, I guess we do a combination of both design projects as well as, more strategic marketing work. And I need to be creative across both of those. So definitely I do have blocks like everyone. A few of the things that I do, I often will read a lot online and research online. I love Pinterest. So definitely from a visual perspective, I like to create boards that are on theme. I think getting outside is really important. So being in nature, and I know that's not so related to, being in the office and working, but I think that clearing the mind is super important. I actually have fostered that, internally within our team. We've started having meetings outside in the fresh air and get the body moving a little bit more, and, that seemed to work really well. So definitely being in nature is important. I'd love to do more of it, but I think that, yoga and meditation are two super important things for me to clear the mind so that more creativity can come in. And a little bit woo-woo, and I'm actually holding it right now, but I'm actually holding a citrine crystal, so which should help with a bit of creativity as well, I hear.
These are some kind of like triggers. Like I've got a fidget spinner which I keep spinning, so it's like it focuses your mind from the current task, and it just sends you in this creative space. Like I consider myself a creative guy more than I consider myself like somebody who's organized all the time. I'm more of a creative guy, and I think that's where we both are a bit alike, because we both are like creatives. Like we think about things differently, and we are always in that creative mode. And you touched upon meditation, which I'm a big believer in. I meditate a lot. In fact, it's like 20 minutes every day. It's a must for me. So that's what I do, and it's great. Definitely, clearing your mind is one of the most important thing you can do, especially if you have a lot of work around you. You have got chaos around you. Let's put it that way: chaos around you, and you're leading the business. You're on the front lines. That's why I named the podcast Frontliners, because you're always on the front lines. You're the owner. You have to deal with everything that comes your way. So it's a really important proponent to your well-being, which is all great, which is amazing. And one more thing that you mentioned about like the team you're building. This turns out to be a perfect segue. Like I would love to know, like, what are your topmost business philosophies, like, or core values that you like to have in your team members, or the type of clients that you like to work with? Like, are they like-minded? Do they have a fixed mindset, or are they growth mindset? Like, are they open to change? What are those business philosophies or core values, like top 2 or 3 most that you value the most?
Oh, look, if I start with our team, I think our team, we want people who are kind and empathetic and experts in what they do, because we really respect what they bring to the table. And so we generally will empower them and let them work autonomously most of the time, but obviously need them to come together as a group. And, we want them to leave at the end of the day feeling fulfilled and happy with whatever they've achieved. And they're happy to come to work with us as part of our team. I think that's definitely, what we'd love to instill. We definitely, as part of our team values and our business values, we have 5 that we stand by, and it's creativity and connection and being professional at all times and delighting, so surprising and delighting, and we're working on that one. And positivity, because happiness is truly everything. So we laugh and we joke and we smile, and it's not all serious, but we also get on with the job when it's needed. That's really internally. And if I look at our clients and our ideal clients, really they're ideally progressive thinkers. They value marketing, they value design, they know that it will transform their business by embracing the work that we do together, and they collaborate, because we cannot work with clients and make a true difference if they don't work together with us. They are driving their business, they own their business. We are there as a very key support arm. But we have to work together with them. We don't work independently. So collaboration is key.
That's awesome. Those are some really great values you mentioned here. And the biggest takeaway from that is about the employees. Like, they're not really employees; they're your team. They want to be, at the end of the day, they want to feel like they've accomplished something today. They're fulfilled. They're happy, which is a great value to have in a team, because that's the team that will go far ahead and move the business forward at the end of the day. And talking about well-being, I know you're involved with another project of yours. I don't know if you call it a project, but it's called Everyday Awakenings. Maybe you'd like to give us an idea, like, how did that come about? Just a brief overview of how that came about, and touch it upon it from a point of view of well-being and fulfillment and happiness.
Sure. So Everyday Awakenings is it started off as a blog, which I haven't actually updated for quite a long time now, but it started off as a blog when my daughter was 10 months old, so just over 4 years ago now. And it really started off really with a burning feeling and need and desire to communicate my passion around healthy living, both for mind, body and soul. And it sort of stemmed from me, having to change. I changed a lot in my life. I probably wasn't living my best self, in my 20s and early 30s. And then when I wanted to get serious about having a family, everything became a lot more focused around health and well-being. So I've been on a path of self-development in this space for quite a long time now, and I wanted to share what I had learned because I felt that it was just too important a message not to. So my the blog has now morphed into a Facebook online community, which is an incredibly engaged, warm and giving community. And we share healthy product ideas that we find. We share inspiration to continue to put a positive message out into the world, empower ourselves to do and be our best. It's all about being positive. I don't sort of allow any negativity whatsoever, and it really is about bringing more goodness in the world and also recognizing those brands, particularly in terms of products, who are doing good things, who are creating amazing products, and I'm helping give them a voice by, whether I review that particular product by trying it and then sharing that within my social media or the group. And then our community themselves, when they find something, they also share what they find too. So it's a really great space, and I welcome anyone who wants to join.
That's amazing. That's something really admirable, because entrepreneurship is great, running a business is great, but these are the kind of things that really fulfill you from the inside. Like, you have a community around you, people who are positive. Those are the kind of things that really matter at the end of the day. Like, you made a difference somehow to the people around you, which is all great stuff. I really admire you for doing that. So, Rosie, this has all been a whole lot of fun. I really learned a lot from you. Like, it's not just about design, it's about creating a life, designing a life of fulfillment, of happiness, having those great team around you, thinking about things, calming things down. I learned a lot today. So tell us, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I think if you want to contact me directly, you can certainly email me at rosie@ideapro.com.au. We also have social media. So predominantly we're more active on Instagram. So the handle there is Idea Pro Oz, AUS. So yeah, Idea Pro AUS. Or on LinkedIn, you can reach out to connect with me there. For Everyday Awakenings, again, there's social media on Facebook and Instagram. And if you type in Everyday Awakenings Community, you'll see the group there as well. You're welcome to join.
All right, awesome. You know what to do next. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you for coming on the show. I really learned a lot, and I hope to stay in touch with you.
Thanks so much, Anuj. Thank you.